Welcome to Pittman and Friends, the curiously probing, sometimes awkward, but always revealing conversations between your host, Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, that's me, and whatever brave and willing public servant, community leader, or elected official I can find who has something to say that you should hear. This podcast is provided as a public service of Anne Arundel County, so don't expect me to get all partisan here. This is about the age-old art of government, of, by, and for the people. Welcome, everybody. I have an amazing guest with me this morning, Colonel Yolanda Gore, who is the base commander at Fort Meade, right here in Anne Arundel County. I could introduce her as the mayor of Fort Meade, because that's really her job, but we'll talk about all that. So welcome, Colonel.
Thank you, sir. I'm so glad to be here this morning. Thanks for having me.
We're really glad to have you. There's a lot to talk about here. So I think most people in the county know kind of where Fort Meade is in the western part of the county. They may not know how big it is and what's there. What is Fort Meade to us?
So just a little bit about Fort Meade. Fort Meade has about 66,000 employees, and that includes all 6 services, civilians and service members. We are the largest economic employer in the state of Maryland. We have $17 billion in economic impact, about 2,600 homes on the installation, 120 tenant organizations, and we house 2,600 individuals on the post.
Wow, right there. Yes. Yeah, it's huge. That's why I call you the mayor, because you're about the size of Minneapolis, right? And
exactly.
So we really have 2 municipalities, but you're not organized that way.
Not organized, no, sir.
Yeah. And I know that because of Fort Meade, that part of the county is a huge economic driver, because in addition to the government installations that are there and the agencies that are there, which I've heard the number 160, and I don't know, maybe that includes private contractors, but there's a whole network of businesses and contractors around Fort Meade, correct?
That is correct, and it is continuing to grow.
Okay, so yeah, and I think NSA, U.S. Cyber Command, some really big agencies, but you're Army, correct?
Army. Army
if
strong.
If y'all could see the colonel here, you would see she was Army
strong. Yes.
Yep.
We're not an Army of one anymore. We're Army strong now.
Yeah. But and we'll get into some of the things about the fact that Fort Meade is growing and what that means for the county and housing and transportation and all of that. Yeah. Thank you for your service and thank you for what you do there. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I understand you've been 22 years.
22 years active.
Okay.
28 service altogether, because I did in the National Guard prior to becoming an active duty.
So where are you from? Why did you enlist? And how did you end up in this job?
So it was kind of strange. You know, I came from a very small town in Estill, South Carolina, and didn't have much mentoring. Education wasn't that great. Mm-hmm. But I knew there was 2 things you could do when you finish school. You could go to college, or you can go in the military. So I chose both. I joined the National Guard, which helped me pay to go to college. So I kind of straddled the fence, and I had the best of both worlds. And when I got to graduate, one of the recruiters came to me and he said, you know what? If you join and you get commissioned, you can make $33,000 a year. And back then, 25 years ago, that was a big jump for someone coming out of college. So I said, you know what? If I don't like this after 3 years, I can do something else. But here I am, 22 years later, I'm still here. Serving my country. So that's kind of how I end up here. I wasn't one of those individuals that said, oh, I wanted to serve all my whole life. But I realized I had a calling for it my whole life. And I found my true passion here in the military, helping soldiers, helping civilians, and helping communities.
Well, you must have been good at it, because look at where you are now. So where have you been around the world? You get to travel, right?
So fun fact, I have not served. I've been stationed overseas, but of course I've had 2 deployments. I've been to what we call now Fort Liberty, used to be Fort Bragg, probably one of the best assignments I've had. I spent a lot of time in the Pentagon, a total of 8 years. I've been to Fort Bliss, I've been to Fort Jackson, and a host of CONUS stations, but not overseas. which some found very interesting. Someone at my level did not make it overseas, but I had several training in Korea, in Germany, where when I was in Special Forces, we went over there and trained with the Korean forces. So I had the experience, but just never stationed over there.
They had you here, figuring out how things work and making sure they do work.
On the home station, right? So I had to take care of home.
Yeah. And so what was your last assignment before you came to Fort Meade?
So before I came to Fort Meade, I was in the Army G1. I was the Chief of Strategic Initiatives. And that's basically the planner for all personnel management.
Where is that?
That is in the Pentagon.
It's in the Pentagon. Okay.
In the Pentagon. I had a PAO team. I did all the Medal of Honor for the recipient. If you see all those going at the White House, they'd happen in my office. I did a publication, so anything related to personnel, I had to update all the publications. Congressional liaison, so I liaison anything. So all the
that sounds like an office job, like behind the scenes.
So it is so behind the scenes. So when they go to testimony, I organize the testimony for the general officers to go before Congress and testify. So I did a lot of that. So it was a fun job, very strenuous, but learned a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of like, in my world of politics, it's kind of like being the staffer, the person who does all the real work, and then you give it to the boss who goes out there in front of the cameras, right?
Exactly, and actually, takes all that work that you've done behind the scenes and put it to good use. So
now you're in front of the cameras.
Now I'm in front of the cameras. And one thing about me, I like to be behind the scenes. I am better behind the scenes. I am better making individuals. I get a joy out of making people happy.
Can I beg to differ?
No.
Because you told me that one of the things that you love is the fact that in this job you're dealing with people every day.
Every day.
And you're connecting with people. You're not sitting behind a computer. So to me, connecting with people and connecting with the camera aren't that different.
I see it different, like writing the speeches and preparing the boss for these big meetings. That's all boring. But when I can get in front of people and talk, because people just want to be heard, right? They just want to be heard, and I just want to be that voice for them. Because sometimes they just don't have that voice in the community. They don't have that voice in the Army. So it's kind of different.
And that's why you're natural at the job you're in.
I think that's why. I'm my authentic self.
Somebody else saw something in you didn't see when they put you here, I think.
I think so. Yeah. And just a story, when I got this job, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have never done anything like this. I do not know how to be a mayor. But I realized all the jobs that I had in the past has shaped me for this particular job. I didn't know, but they were perfect. They were perfect.
Yeah. Well, so I've seen, I guess you're the third now, base commander. They change every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
I got to say, unfortunately, I mean, if they didn't, we wouldn't have you. But I will say that everyone that's been there, I've felt a connection to, and I've always been impressed. And I always think going in, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit intimidated. I'm a little intimidated by police. And I'm a little intimidated by military. I mean, y'all are trained, you're disciplined, and you expect things to go like clockwork. And I'm not always like that. And so I think that, that's a little bit intimidating. So,
it is.
So I've been really pleased that all the base commanders have been human beings with senses of humor and feelings. And it's been a relief to me and impressive.
And you almost have to. And as a base commander, you wear two hats. You got a commander hat and you got a community hat. And how you balance those two is a very delicate balance. Because sometimes you have some that lean more to the commander side and you have some that lean more to the community side. But you got to have that delicate balance in how you navigate both, because they both feed into each other.
And I think that's good training for being we joke about being a mayor or a leader of people in the community where they live. You've got to... there are times when you've got to be firm and you can't let people push you around, and that you're trained to be firm.
That's all the time. Firm.
Yeah, but at the same time, really, tell me, I mean, obviously when you got this job, you thought about it, and then you came and you learned from Colonel Sapp, who was your predecessor,
Yes.
correct? And great guy, by the way.
Yes.
So what did you think? You got 2 years. What's your approach, and what do you want to accomplish?
So when I got here, my PAO team, they beat me up. They said, "Hey, you know, what is you want? What
What's
are your
PAO?
priorities?"
Y'all in your initials.
Public Affairs Office.
Okay.
That's the Chad and team. They kept bugging me. It was like, what are your priorities? What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I got to know who Fort Meade is. Like, I don't come into an organization with some little cliche words or, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because I don't know what the community needs. I do not know what the community needs. So when I figured it out, I came up with this acronym called SRP, Service, Relationships, and Purpose. And I figure out if you could get through those, you could do anything in life, anything.
So you've gotten a sense of who, you know, what the community is and needs and this thing. So where's that going to take you in the next couple of years?
So in the next 18 months or so, Fort Meade has so many resources on the installation and off the installation. The one thing that I want to get accomplished before leaving this position is fixing the transparency and the communication. Communication is so important. We have county leaders, we have state leaders, we have internal leaders that lead programs that the government and the county feed money into every day, but it does not get down to the individuals that actually need them. I get briefed on things day in and day out, but I'm one person. So how do I get those other individuals in the room? How do I help the spouses? How do I help the soldiers? How do I reach out to the community? We all have great ideas, but we're so compartmentalized. We're so bottlenecked. So my goal is to bring us all together. It's one big
I'm glad
community.
to hear that.
One big community.
Yeah. It's and I know that there are probably some base commanders who come in and say, okay, there's some brick and mortar thing I want to get done, or, you know, deal with the traffic issue, you know. But I remember the resilience facility, what's it called?
Coon Hall.
Yeah, at Coon Hall. Going in, and the whole idea was to have a place where agencies could be to meet the folks who are on the fort and make sure that they had access to services. And I should go back and you should give me another tour now that it's actually operating and see how that's going. And
we love
because
that
is a location where exactly what you're saying can be done if you can get people there. But you're right that getting the word out in the community. You mentioned that public information officer, and I got to say that Chad guy is sitting right here listening. And in other words,
he's going to help
work
me get
even harder, right?
That's exactly why he's here. And I made a point to say it everywhere we go because it's so important. The resources are there. We just not getting them where they need to be.
Yeah, good. So, our agencies stand ready to help. I know you've had a lot of interaction with the school system.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Bedell, Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and you've got on the base, you've got Meade High School.
Yes.
You've got a middle school and an elementary school too, right?
We do. And
so what's that
I have
been like?
been very active, and I am planning on volunteering.
Okay.
To
as a mentor?
As a mentor, and just kind of see where it goes, because they don't have a lot of female mentors. And I don't want to make this about female, but walking through the schools, females need, somebody besides their mom to say, it's okay, it's going to be okay. Or ask the question, how can I help? Because as a parent, you're never going to beat peer pressure.
Well,
and peer pressure going to win.
Female, you in the military always say female. I say women. But anyway, strong women who have authority too.
That makes a difference.
Yeah. You show that with your uniform, right?
Every day. Every day. So I just want to give back to the community. I want them to see me. And the last time we talked, I expressed getting out in the community. And like I said earlier, we went to Severn Center and we had my second team meet, Friends of Meade, where we have all the individuals from the school district, principals, community leaders come in and we talk about schools. And we was in Severn Center and they had these big windows. And they were so amazed by the individuals that were in uniform. you would have thought,
Oh, people were looking through the window?
they were looking through the window. But that's what I want. I want them to see us.
Yeah.
I want them to know we're here, that we're not just Fort Meade. We're a part of this community. We're a part of Anne Arundel County. And that's what I want to get to.
I'm so glad you were there. It's been the Severance Center, for people who don't know, it's a community center that the community fought to have created for over 30 years. There's a woman, she's got a room named after her, Ms. G, who was the leader of that fight. But they were organized for many years, and they were told that Anne Arundel County doesn't do community centers. And so when I came in, I had heard about it and didn't agree with that decision. And sure enough, we managed to cobble together the money to build it, and now it's operating, and it's kind of one of the greatest things that we've done. We had a youth gun violence prevention weekend there last summer. We'll get you involved in that if that happens again, and a lot of things. But for people who are listening, the community around Fort Meade, and then particularly where the Severance Center is, has some of the highest levels of poverty in the county. And there's Pioneer City, there's Still Meadows 1 and 2, which were built to be affordable, but they're private. They're private owners of all the mostly townhouses. There's Meade Village, that is Anne Arundel County's public housing, the Housing Commission, that is adjacent all to the Severance Center. And so the community really wanted a place. So they got a Boys and Girls Club there now. They got the Senior Center there. They got a big gym and a lot of activities. And I can just imagine, the young people looking through the window, at the folks in uniform. Yeah.
And it goes back to, I like the fact that you said you changed the narrative for not having a community center, because that's what it's all about. Letting individuals know that we don't have to have status quo. We can do things different. And I think going forward, those Meade Heights and those surrounding areas, we just got to get them the resources. They can be better, but they don't know what they don't know. So how do we get it to them? Again, it's about communication. It's about being transparent. We have the resources. I know they're available in Anne Arundel County.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
So getting out in the communities and said, this is available. This is how we can help you. How we get you out of these housing situations. Because even where I come from, I've had individuals that's been in Section 8 housing for years because they don't know. They don't.
Yep.
They don't know how to get to the next level.
And the great and crazy thing is that we have all of these jobs right next door. And a lot of folks in those communities don't even think about working at the fort, on the fort, or any of the organizations that are around the fort. And how do you get into those jobs? So fortunately, we've got you and your team welcoming folks and showing the uniforms and all of that. And then we've got our community college, we've got our workforce development folks, we got our school system, we got as you say, a lot of institutions that are there to help to make that transition from where people are and meet them where they are. And that,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I just want to put that disclaimer out there. Fort Meade does hire from in the community. So if you're looking for a job, please, usajobs.com. They're not just for individuals that are veterans or wear the uniform.
Yeah.
usajobs.gov.
usajobs.gov. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm looking at some figures. You've got more civilian employees than military. You've got like 41,000 civilian.
Yes, and that's largely because of NSA.
Okay.
Largely that population is civilian.
Yeah.
And Cybercom, and we have DISA. Those three organizations is the largest civilian population on post. Because the garrison, I have about 380 myself that just works directly for the garrison.
So you mentioned that you are planning to sign up to be a mentor at Meade High School.
Yes.
Are there other opportunities for folks on the fort to volunteer or mentor or anything like that in the community?
Yes, and one I do want to hit is Sarah's House. I go to a lot of community events, and I get questioned, what can I do? I need help at Sarah's House. I need mentor groups. We need toilet tissue, whatever you can bring. We would love your time and anything that you could get, but Sarah's House is one of the big ones that I often ask individuals to, because it's off the fort. You don't need a pass to get there. It's easier to access. And
And I will just throw in, Sarah's House is the only shelter in the county that allows families, whole families and kids.
Yes, sir. And that's why it's so important. I visited Sarah's House twice already, and to see the moms and the kids it's just put chills up my spine. But I'm due for another visit, so I'll be going back soon, and can't wait to just interact and sit down with the moms and figure out how I can help them navigate this tough time.
And every time a new commander comes in, the first thing I say, and I think I said to you, is let's keep Sarah's House. Let's do everything we can to keep Sarah's House operating. I know it's not a real, it's not high on the list for an Army base to have a homeless shelter. It just happens that it's there because the buildings were there and they were available. And I got to say that the feds, you guys, the people above you, have been great in helping to keep those buildings from falling down. Yes. And then Catholic Charities actually runs it, and they have been great at operating. Awesome. And I had the same experience as you visiting. In fact, I remember the first time I visited, they had the child care thing going on with the little kids and even the babies, and they were napping and the lights were down, and they brought us in and they just said, shh. And it just sort of hit me like these little kids are dreaming right now about what their lives, and wake up, and they're going to wake up and the dreams are going to have just been a dream. And we want to make sure that their dreams come true, And, and so when they asked for more money in the budget, it was like, it was a yes. So, and we've been able to increase our side because Catholic Charities has not been able to increase theirs. In fact, they've reduced theirs. So they're becoming more dependent on county government. But for us, it is a way more efficient way to deliver for our homeless and threatened with homeless population. And they've got this great program of transitional housing too, where folks move into these apartments. We did a service day where we were helping clean the apartments for the next tenant.
Wow.
And they move in for a year with services, and then they work to get them into permanent housing from there. So it's really, they're doing the job.
It's a great program over there. And I say, if you have not gone, you have to go check out Sarah's House.
Yeah. And you can volunteer there. You can, I shouldn't be saying this, but you can donate to them.
Donate.
No, I think I'm allowed to advocate and encourage people to support nonprofits that the county is supporting. Yes. they have ethics rules on these things, but I have to be careful. But support Sarah's House. I'll just say that, and if I get in trouble for it, so be it. Support Sarah's House.
That's right, Sarah's House.
Yeah. So then there's also, that's sort of one end of the economic scale, and the other is, the business community and the organizations that they run their businesses with contracts with the federal government, many of them, because the fort is there. So there's a thing called the Fort Meade Alliance. Have you participated in any of their meetings or gone?
So I have participated in several meetings with the Fort Meade Alliance, a great, great organization. We're actually teaming up right now to develop a program to help spouses get employment. And I know we talked about Coon Hall. Meade Alliance was a big, big driving factor in getting Coon Hall renovated and up and running.
And I will just say that the Alliance is businesses and agencies, but the businesses in the Alliance provide donations that made it possible to build Coon Hall. I mean, the county stepped in.
They did.
And so, and they've done the same thing on transportation. It's really a service organization to Fort Meade. Yeah.
And it hits to that piece I said earlier about those relationships, keeping those relationships open. How do we keep those open to grow the fort? They help the community. And if we can't do that, then we're going to have a hard road to travel.
Yep. There was a former county executive who called, because of all the activity at Fort Meade, and then Arundel Mills comes along and grows, called it the Gold Coast, because that's where all the money was being generated in the county. The economic growth of the county was that, and I don't call it that anymore. That just seems a little bit, I don't know, or piling up bricks of gold. But it really is, so because it's an economic driver, it's a place of opportunity.
It is.
That's what's so exciting about it, yeah.
It is. And I remember when I first got here and I was just riding around. I didn't know what roads to travel, but I ended up at Live. Not a big gambler, but I ended up at Live because I was looking for a seafood place, and it was one nearby. And I can tell you, I was just so impressed with that area. And I was told it wasn't always that way. That a lot has been done in that area. And just to hear everybody talk about the change was very, very exciting.
Not everybody wanted that casino. There was a real movement to try to prevent it from happening. Actually, it was very complicated. I won't get into it with horse racing and gambling and all of these and all of the big corporate titans that were fighting their fights. But it has been such a great jobs driver. The casino itself actually has a relationship with Anne Arundel Community College to train people for the jobs, the many jobs that they have that pay well. But being a dealer at the card tables, you got to get training for that, and then being there next to the mall and having a hotel. So it's been good. But you know what? It also creates a problem. In fact, the base realignment and the growth of Fort Meade has created a problem for the county, which is we got to deliver housing, or else everybody's going to be driving there from other counties, right? And then the roads are clogged up, and we got to make sure that transportation exists, that the roads aren't all jammed up. And so, what are you hearing on those things?
So I haven't heard a lot on those, but we are doing the same developments on posts. As as I said earlier, we are growing. We are continuing to grow. And I don't know if you've been on Fort Meade lately, but we're doing a widening of Cooper Road. We're looking at widening. I
have been on Fort Meade lately because I went to your house for your.
Oh, that's right. That's right. How could I forget? That
for your New Year's, late New Year, welcome in the New Year.
You probably didn't get a chance to ride around. So let's just say you probably didn't get a chance to just check out the fort. But if you rode on Cooper, you can see that we're widening that. And also we're trying to widen one of our ACPs so that we can get a bigger throughput to the NSA in 1 hour gate. So there's a lot of things that's going on post that will help people off post. So
and that gate moves fast until I get there. And then, of course, everybody's ID's getting checked and everything. I got my ID now in the system, so I'm good.
You're good.
But if I got anybody else in the car, security's a serious matter there.
It's a serious matter.
As it should be,
Because I am charged with the safety of everybody that live on the installation. And if the men and women who serve are not safe when they go to bed at night, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the county has known for years that we had to do more housing, but hasn't always had public support to do more housing. And growth and development is not always welcomed by our residents. And some of that's changing, that we have been able to get political and public support for housing. People understand we have a shortage. It's a crisis. It's a major problem. And part of the cause of it is government regulations getting in the way of doing the kind of development we say we need. So we have done some things to make it easier to do housing in areas zoned for commercial, for instance, and mixed use, so that you can do a higher percentage of housing. We used to say commercial is good for the county's tax base, but housing is not, because we got to do schools and the cost. Now we're saying we got to do housing, period, for economic reasons, because our businesses need workers to exist and to grow. So.
And sir, that is very good to hear, because a lot of what's outside of our installation impacts who wants to come here. So we don't have housing, we don't have schools, we don't have child care centers. Individuals don't want to come and work at Fort Meade because those resources are not available. So to hear you say that is great, because we need that outside of the installation, because we can only provide so many. I have 3 CDCs right now. I'm having one built in the coming years. In about 2 to 3 years, we probably break ground on the next CDC. But it is constantly growing. And to see that the county is being more open to housing, don't forget about those child care centers, don't forget about, and that's why I'm so, when it comes to team meeting, we talk about schools play an important factor in where people live and where they want to work. So we have to make sure we take care of the schools as well.
Yeah, I've been, the governor has been trying to address the need for economic growth in the state of Maryland, because we've been stagnant for many years, and we got a budget crisis as a result of that. He fortunately is talking about it in terms of, the leave no one behind, that our businesses can only grow if we have a healthy, housed workforce, well-educated workforce that has a place to live close to where they're going to be working, and that's the greatest economic kind of driver that we can do.
That's the greatest one here. Yeah. We got to build it here at home in Anne Arundel County.
Yeah. Well, if you ever retire from the military, you might really want to think about government and even politics.
It's funny you said that. It's so funny. On the ride here, I told Chad, I said, you know what? As I sit here in this uniform, I think I can do so much more outside of the uniform, because I am bound by certain things that I can and cannot do and cannot say.
Of course. Yeah.
When I wear this uniform. But when I take it off, I feel I can be so more impactful. So it has crossed my mind.
Yeah,
it has definitely crossed my mind. So that's reassuring to hear you say that. Yeah. Very reassuring to hear you say that.
Good. All right.
Chad wasn't convinced, but I think I got this one.
As I'm walking away from politics, you can walk in. So, okay, I got one more question. Last one, I think, which is for folks who are visiting or want to visit the fort. How do you get in? It's a big thing on the map.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and sometimes it seems complicated, but it's a very, very easy process. You have to go to the Visitor Control Center, but I do want to make one announcement that we are opening Reese Gate in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That will be our 24-hour gate. You no longer have to switch inspections and get checked from Rockenbach Gate to Mapes 175. You now have one single point of entry that is open 24 hours that can do your inspections, that can do your visitor control when the visitor.
So that gate is called what for people to find on Google?
Reese Gate.
The Reese Gate, Reese Road.
Reese Road, and it leads right into Reese Road. Good. So that is definitely a good news story.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Good.
I'm excited.
That'll make that easier. Anything happening that I've missed before we close out?
Nothing happening, but I do want to say that this year is the Army's 250th birthday. So you'll see several celebrations that go on the installation.
Like
You're right. It's a lot.
That's a happening.
So we're tying a lot of our events to the 250th year for the Army, which is near and dear to my heart.
All right. And so for people to get information and follow what's going on at the fort, where should they go?
So they should probably go, and the easiest place to go is to join Facebook and like our page.
Oh, everybody's already done that, right?
Like our page, Fort George G. Meade, Maryland. And it's the same name for our Instagram, our Facebook, and our X. I think that's what they call it now. It's not Twitter. It's X. I got to get used to that.
Right. Well, I still call it Twitter.
No TikTok yet. No TikTok yet.
You're not on TikTok?
No, we're not on TikTok yet.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. You started about 6 months ago, so you got about 18 months to go. Let's make the most of it.
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And if you are listening to this podcast, and there is a subscribe button somewhere on the app that you're using, please punch it, and then you will get emails telling you who's the next guest. We got some good ones coming up, but thank you.
Thanks, sir, for having me.